This video is on theoretical probability, and theoretical probability is the number of times a desired outcome occurs divided by the number of trials in the experiment. A trial is like if you're flipping a coin once, that's one trial. If you flip a coin 5 times, that's 5 trials. So theoretical probability, you use proportions to figure out theoretical probability. So if you flip a coin 40 times, how many times would we expect it to land on heads? So you figure out a single trial probability, and for flipping a coin you have a 1 in 2 chance. That's 1 heads out of a choice of heads or tails in the bottom. Okay? So that's your basic probability. Another way you could think about this is to think of it as, hey, out of every 2 flips, you're going to land on heads once. Well, for multiple trials, we're doing 40 trials, 40 flips. That's going to be how many out of 40? And you can solve for n by doing your cross product and then divide by 2, 40 times 1 divided by 2, and you get 20. So we would expect the coin to land on heads 20 times. Now if you flip a coin 40 times and always exactly get 20, that's going to be kind of weird. But in theory, you would get 20 out of 40 heads. Okay, it's not always going to happen. Sometimes you'll get a little more, sometimes you'll get a little less. Let's just make sure we're good on basic theoretical right now. If a number cube is rolled 180 times, how many times would we expect to roll a 5? So if we have a number cube, we need to figure out the probability for just rolling a 5 on one roll. And there is 1 5 out of 6 possibilities when rolling a number cube. You have a 1 in 6 chance of rolling a 5. Another way to look at it, though, is to say, hey, out of every 6 rolls, you're expecting to roll a 5 once. So if we're rolling 180 times, that's the number of trials. 180 trials, that'd be blank out of 180. And you can do 180 times 1 divided by 6, and you'll get 30 out of 180. So out of 180 rolls, you'd expect to roll a 5 30 times. Whether or not it really happens in real life, it'll get close to it. Sometimes if you do, you'll get a little more, sometimes you'll get a little less. So that's theoretical. In theory, you'd get 30 out of 180. So we've got a spinner up here. If we spin that spinner 100 times, how many times would we expect to land on a yellow? Well, for a single spin, you have 2 yellows out of a possibility of 5 outcomes. Now, if we're spinning 100 times, that means we're going to set it up like this. How many out of 100? 2 out of every 5 spins gives you yellow, blank out of 100. You can do your cross product technique, 100 times 2 divided by 5, and get 40. We would expect the arrow to land on yellow 40 times. If you were to spin it 100 times, you'd expect 40 of those times to land on yellow. If we spin 250 times, how many times would we expect to land on red? Well, for a single spin, you have a 1 in 5 chance of getting red. So if you do 150 times, 250 times 1 divided by 5, you should have 50 reds. 50 reds out of 250 trials. Okay, so now which event is most likely to happen? If we have 10 coin flips, the coin lands on tails 5 times. Well, that could happen. Out of 100 coin flips, the coin lands on tails 50 times. That could also happen. Out of 1,000 flips, the coin lands on tails 500 times. Now, if you set these up, 5 out of 10 in lowest terms is a half. 50 out of 100 also works out to a half. 500 out of 1,000 also works out to a half. All of these work out to the same ratio. But the one that's most likely to occur is the one that takes place the most, the one that had the most trials. So the one that had the most trials was the 1,000 coin flips. 500 out of 1,000 is most likely to happen. The more you do a trial, the more likely you're going to get that theoretical outcome. Let's try this again. Out of 18 rolls, a die lands on 5 3 times. A die is another word for number cube. So out of 18, you'd roll a 5 3 times. Out of 600 rolls, the die gets a 5 100 times. Out of 1,800 rolls, the die lands on a 5 300 times. Well, once again, if we set up these ratios in lowest terms, they all work out to the same thing. The one that's most likely to occur, though, the more times an event takes place, the more likely the prediction will occur. So the one that had the most trials was this one. The more you do something, the more likely you're going to get that theoretical probability.